Hi, my name is Shinko. Welcome to my channel. We have been attempting to escape from reality with the Warriors and its Forest of Secrets. It is the third book in the series, The Warriors by Erin Hunter. If you're new, hello, welcome. You can check out my previous videos. I've read the previous two books. Trigger warning. There is life and death. If you cannot handle characters coming and going, you probably won't like it. But if you can't tell by the cover, it's about cats, essentially. It's a lot more convoluted than that, but we left off at chapter 10. And, yep. A lot of stuff is coming together. We left off with some suspicions of what Tiger Claw might be up to going into Two-Leg Place. A place he clearly has a disdain for, and he hates anything to do with kitty pets. Why would he go there? We also left off on just a lot happening. Blue Star doesn't believe Fireheart about Tiger Claw possibly being dangerous. Gray Stripe is still seeing a Silverstream, even though they're from different clans. And then, of course, there's Princess, Fireheart's sister. There's a lot of cats, and there's a lot of drama going around. So if you're still sticking around and you're new, hey, check it out. Let's get started. Back in the camp, Fireheart spotted Blue Star leaving the nursery. Quickly, he dropped his catch on the pile of fresh kill and padded over to her. Yes, Fireheart, what is it? The leader asked. Her voice was calm, but with a sinking feeling, Fireheart knew that the lack of warmth meant she had not forgiven him for asking about the missing ThunderClan kits. He lowered his head respectfully. Blue Star, I was hunting near Two-Leg Place and... Why there? Blue Star interrupted. Sometimes I think you spend too much time near Two-Leg Place, Fireheart. I just thought there might be prey there, Fireheart stammered. Anyway, while I was there, I smelled some strange cats. At once, Blue Star was alert. Her ears flicked up, and she fixed her eyes intently on Fireheart. How many cats? What clan were they from? I'm not sure how many, Fireheart admitted. 5 or 6 at least, but they didn't have the scent of any clan. He wrinkled his nose as he remembered. They smelled of crow food, which made me sure they weren't kitty pets. Blue Star looked thoughtful, and to Fireheart's relief, her hostility toward him seemed to ebb away. How recent was this scent? She asked. Quite recent, but I didn't see any cats there. Except Tiger Claw, he added silently. But Fireheart decided not to tell Blue Star that part of the story. The leader was in no mood to listen to any more accusations against her deputy, and he had no evidence anyway that Tiger Claw had anything to do with the unknown cats. Rogues from the Two-Leg Place, perhaps? Blue Star guessed. Thank you, Fireheart. I'll tell the patrols to keep a lookout when they go that way. I don't suppose there are any threats of ThunderClan, but we can't be too careful. Fireheart padded towards the camp with a bowl clamped firmly in his jaws. The sun shone from a brilliantly blue sky, and already, 2 days after his meeting with Princess, most of the snow was gone. Buds were swelling, and a mist of tiny green leaves was beginning to cover the trees. More importantly, prey was reappearing in the forest. Already, it was easier to replenish the pile of fresh kill, and for the first time in moons, the clan was full fed. Fireheart arrived in the clearing to find the queens raking old bedding out of the nursery. When he had dropped his prey on the pile of fresh kill, he went across to give them a hand, pleased to see Cloudkit was helping too. I'm going to show the other kids the good moss place, the kit meowed proudly as he staggered past with a load of bedding. Good idea, Fireheart agreed. He noticed that even after Tiger Claw relieved him of his duties with the elders, Claw Kit had gone on helping. Maybe at last the kit was feeling some spark of loyalty towards his adopted clan. Watch out for badgers, though. Just then, he saw Goldenflower emerge from the nursery, pushing a ball of soiled moss in front of her. Her belly was round with the weight of the kits she was carrying. "Hello, Fireheart," she meowed. "Isn't it great to see the sun again?" Fireheart gave the queen's shoulder a friendly lick. "Soon will be new leaf," he meowed. "Just in time for your kits. If you..." He broke off and spun around as he heard Tiger Claw's voice behind him, speaking his name. "Fireheart, if you've nothing better to do than stand gossiping with the queens, I have a job for you." Fireheart bit back in angry response. He'd been hunting all morning and paused only for a few moments to talk to Goldenflower. "I want you to take a patrol along the border of RiverClan," the deputy went on. "No cat has been that way for a few days, and now the snow has gone, we need to renew the scent markings. Make sure no RiverClan cats are hunting in our territory. If they are, you know what to do." "Yes, Tiger Claw," Fireheart meowed. Hedgehogs must be growing wings, he thought, if Tiger Claw had chosen him to lead a patrol. Then he realized that Tiger Claw was too clever to behave hostility towards him in public. The deputy would be careful to treat him just the same as any other clan warrior, in case Blue Star noticed. "But I still don't trust you," Fireheart thought. Aloud, he meowed. "Whom shall I take with me?" "Any cat you like. Or do you need me to hold your paw?" Tiger Claw added with a sneer. "No, Tiger Claw." By now, Fireheart could barely keep his tongue curbed. He would have loved to swipe a claw over the deputy's scared muscle. He mewed a hasty goodbye to Goldenflower and headed for the warrior's den. Sandstorm was there, lying on her side and energetically washing, while Graystripe and Running Wind shared tongues nearby. "Who's up for a patrol?" Fireheart called. "Tiger Claw wants us to check the RiverClan border." Graystripe scrambled to his paws right away at the mention of RiverClan, while Running Wind got up more slowly. Sandstorm paused in her washing and looked up at Fireheart. "Just when I was hoping for a bit of peace," she complained. "I've been hunting since dawn." But her tone was good-humored, not remotely as unfriendly as she was when he had first arrived in the clan, Fireheart thought, and almost at once she got up and shook herself. "All right," she mewed. "Lead on." "What about Brackenpaw?" Fireheart asked Graystripe. "Do you want to bring him along?" "White Storm and Mousefur took the apprentices out," Running Wind explained. "All the apprentices. More fool them. They're hunting fresh kill for the elders." Fireheart led the way out of the camp, feeling a tingle in his paws as he leapt up the side of the ravine. It felt like moons, since he had had a good run without snow to freeze his paws off, and he wanted to stretch his muscles. "We'll head for the Sunning Rocks," he meowed, "and then follow the border up to 4 trees. He set a brisk pace through the trees, but not so fast that he failed to notice the brilliant green fronds of new bracken beginning to unfurl, or the first pale buds of primroses pushing out of their green coverings. Birdsong filled the air, and the fresh scent of growing things. He slowed down to a walk as the patrol approached the edge of the forest. Ahead of him, he could hear the sound of the river, free at last from its bonds of ice. "We're almost at the border," he meowed quietly. "From here on out, we have to keep alert. There may be RiverClan cats about." Graystripe stopped and opened his jaws to drink in scent from the breeze. "I can't smell any," he reported. Fireheart wondered if he was disappointed that Silverstream wasn't nearby. "Besides, they'll have plenty of prey now that the river's unfrozen," Graystripe added. "Why should they come and steal ours?" "I wouldn't put it past RiverClan," growled Running Wind. "They'd steal the fur off your back if you didn't keep an eye on them." Fireheart saw Graystripe beginning to bristle. "Come on, then," he meowed hastily, trying to distract his friend before he said something that gave away his divided loyalties. Let's go. He raced away through the last of the trees and burst out onto open ground. What he saw there brought him skidding to a halt. The memory of his dream crashed into his mind like a thunderclap. In front of the cats, the land sloped gently down to the river, or what had been the river. Swelled by the melting snow, the fast-flowing water had burst the banks and risen until it lapped the grass barely a rabbit length from Fireheart's paws. The tips of reeds just showed above it. Further upstream, sunny rocks were gray islands in the midst of a shimmering silver lake. The thaw certainly had come, but now the river was in full flood. Chapter 11. Great StarClan! Breathed Sandstorm. The other two cats grunted in agreement, but Fireheart was speechless with horror. He had instantly recognized the shining expanse of water, and now he recalled Spotted Leaf's ominous words, "Water can quench fire." Fear chilled him as he struggled to understand how this flood could threaten his clan, so that he was hardly aware of Graystripe trying to attract his attention until a big gray cat pressed up close to his side. Panic flared in Graystripe's amber eyes, and Fireheart didn't need to ask why. His friend was afraid for Silverstream. The land was lower on the RiverClan bank, so the floodwaters could spread much further. As for the camp on the island, Fireheart wondered how much of that was underwater now. He had grown to like Silverstream in spite of his concerns, and he felt a grudging respect for Mistyfoot and Graypool, too. He didn't want to imagine them driven out of their camp, or worse, drown. Running Wind had padded right to the water's edge. It was gazing out across the river. "RiverClan isn't going to like this," he remarked. "And a good thing, too. Oh, keep 'em off our territory." Fireheart felt Graystripe tense at the note of satisfaction in Running Wind's voice. He shot his friend a warning glance. "Well, we can't patrol the border now," he pointed out. "We'd better get back to camp and report this. Come on, Graystripe," he added firmly, seeing the warrior look once more with anguish across the swollen river. As soon as Blue Star heard the news, she leapt to the top of the high rock and gave the familiar call. "Let all cats old enough to catch their own prey join here beneath High Rock for a clan meeting." At once, cats began to pour out of their dens and into the clearing. Fireheart took his place at the front of the crowd, noticing with a prickle of annoyance that Cloudkit had come bouncing along after Brindleface. Although he was too young to attend the meeting, he saw Yellowfang and Cinderpaw listening from the mouth of the fern tunnel. Even Broken-Tail emerged from his den, nudged along by Mousefur. The bright morning was coming to an end. Clouds were massing to cover the face of the sun. The gentle breeze had strengthened until a stiff wind blew across the clearing, flattening the fur of the cats who crouched around the high rock. Fireheart shivered and didn't know whether it was from cold or apprehension. "Cats of ThunderClan," meowed Blue Star. "Our camp may be in danger. The snow is gone, but the river has burst its banks. Part of our territory is already flooded." A chorus of dismay rose from the clan, but Blue Star raised her voice above the yells. "Fireheart, tell the clan what you have seen." Fireheart stood up and described how the river had overflowed near the Sunning Rocks. "It doesn't sound that dangerous to us," meowed Darkstripe when he had finished. "We have plenty of territory left for prey. Let RiverClan worry about the floods." A murmur of approval broke out. Although Fireheart noticed that Tekka stayed silent, he sat at the base of the high rock, motionless, except for the twitching tip of his tail. "Silence!" spat Blue Star. "The water could spread here before we know it. Something like this is bigger than clan rivalry. I don't want to hear that any RiverClan cats have died from these floods." Fireheart noticed a hot glow in her eyes as she spoke, as if her words meant more than she had said. Puzzled, he remembered how angry Blue Star had been with him for speaking to RiverClan warriors, yet now her strength of feeling suggested a current of sympathy running deep within her. Patchpelt spoke up from among the elders. I remember the last time river overflowed many moons ago. Cats, all clans drowned. Prey drowned too, and we went hungry even though our paws stayed dried. This is not just RiverClan's problem. Well said, Patchpelt, meowed Blue Star. I remember those days too, and I hoped I would never have to see such times again. But since it has happened, these are my orders. No cat is to go out alone. Kits and apprentices must not leave the camp without at least one warrior. Patrols will go out to discover how far the floods reach. Tagakwa, see to it. Yes, Blue Star, meowed the deputy. I'll send out hunting patrols too. We must build up a stock of prey before the waters rise any further. Good idea, agreed a Blue Star. She raised her voice again to address the whole clan. The meeting is over. Go to your duties. She leaped down lightly from the high rock and padded across to talk with Patchpelt and the other elders. Fireheart was waiting to see if Tigerclaw would choose him for a patrol when he noticed Graystripe edging away from the circle of cats. Fireheart headed after him and caught up just as he broke for the gorse tunnel. Where do you think you're going? He hissed in the Grey Warrior's ear. Blue Star just said that no cat should go out alone. Graystripe turned a panicky look on him. Fireheart, I have to see Silverstream, he protested. I have to be sure she's okay. Fireheart let out a long sigh of exasperation. He understood how his friend was feeling, but he could hardly have chosen a worse time to go visiting his mate. How will you get across the river? He asked. I'll manage, Graystripe promised grimly. It's only water. Don't be such a mouse brain, Fireheart spat, remembering the time Graystripe had fallen through the ice when Silverstream had rescued him. You nearly drowned once before. Wasn't that enough for you? Graystripe didn't answer. He just swung around and made for the tunnel again. Fireheart glanced over his shoulder. The other cats in the clearing were breaking up into small groups under Tigerclaw's direction, ready to go out on patrol. Stop, Graystripe! He hissed, halting his friend at the entrance to the tunnel. Wait there! Once he was sure Graystripe had done as he'd asked, he bounded across the clearing towards the deputy. Hey, Tigerclaw, he meowed. Graystripe and I are ready to go. We'll check the RiverClan boundary downstream of the Sunning Rocks, all right? Tigerclaw narrowed his eyes, clearly displeased that Fireheart had taken it upon himself to choose which area he was going to patrol. But he had no reason to refuse, especially with Blue Star in earshot. All right, he growled. Try to bring back some prey with swell. Yes, Tigerclaw, Fireheart replied, dipping his head before turning to race back to Graystripe. Okay, he panted. We're on patrol, so at least no cat will wonder why we're gone. But you, Graystripe began to protest. I know you have to go, Fireheart meowed. I'm coming with you. He felt a prickle of guilt as he spoke. Even on patrol, he and Graystripe wouldn't be expected to cross clan boundaries. Blue Star would be furious if she knew that two of her warriors were risking their lives to go into enemy territory when their own clan needed them so badly. But Fireheart couldn't just stand there and let Graystripe go alone. His friend could be swept away in the floods and never return. Thanks, Fireheart, murmured Graystripe as they left the tunnel. I won't forget this. Side by side, the two warriors scrambled up the steep, rocky slope as they headed into the forest, retracing the steps of their earlier patrol. Fireheart noticed how muddy the ground was under paw. The melted snow had soaked the earth like the heaviest rainfall, even without the deadly spread of floodwater from the river. When they reached the edge of the trees, Fireheart realized that the water had risen even farther. Sunning Rocks was almost submerged now. The current swirled around them in tight circles. We'll never make it across there, he meowed. Let's head downstream, Graystripe suggested. We might be able to use the stepping stones. We can try, Fireheart meowed uncertainly. He was about to follow his friend when he thought he heard something. A thin, wailing sound above the wind and the rushing of the torrent. Wait! He called. Did you hear that? Graystripe looked back, and both cats stood, ears pricked, straining to catch the sound. Fireheart heard it again, the panic-stricken mewing of kits in distress. Where are they? He meowed, looking all around and up into the trees. I can't see them. There! Graystripe flicked his tail in the direction of Sunning Rocks. Fireheart, they'll drown! Fireheart saw that the current had driven a mat of twigs and debris up against Sunning Rocks. Two kits balanced precariously on it, their tiny mouths stretched wide as they wailed for help. Even as Fireheart watched, the current tugged at the mat, threatening to sweep it away. Come on! He yelled to Graystripe. We've got to reach them somehow! Taking a deep breath, he waded into the flood. The water soaked his fur at once, and a paralyzing, icy chill crept in his legs. The tug of the current made it harder to stay on his paws with every step he took. Graystripe splashed in behind him, but when the water reached his belly, he stopped. Fireheart! He choked out. Fireheart twisted around to give him a comforting nod. He could understand how the river might terrify Graystripe after his near drowning a few moons ago. Stay there, he meowed. I'll try to push the mat over to you. Graystripe nodded, trembling too violently to speak. Fireheart waded forward a few more paces, then launched himself into the current, began to swim, thrashing his legs instinctively to push himself through the black water. They were upstream of the Sunning Rocks. If Star Clan was kind, he should be carried down towards the kits. For a moment, he'd lost sight of them in the wind-ruffled waves, though he could still hear their terrified cries. The smooth gray bulk of Sunning Rocks loomed up beside him. He kicked out strongly, fearing for one panic-stricken heartbeat that he would be swept right past. The current swirled. Fireheart's paws worked furiously. River tossed him against the rock, driving the breath out of his body. He scrabbled at the rough surface, bracing himself against the rushing water, and found himself face to face with the two kits. They were both very small, still suckling from their mother, Fireheart guessed. One was black, one was gray, their fur plastered against their tiny bodies, and their brilliant blue eyes wide with terror. They were crouched on a tangled mat of twigs, leaves, and two-leg rubbish. But when they saw Fireheart, they started to scramble toward him. The mat lurched, and the wails grew louder as river water sloshed over them. Keep still! Fireheart gasped, paddling madly against the current. Briefly, he wondered if he could climb onto the rock and haul the kits up with them, but he was not sure how it would be before the Sunning Rocks were completely submerged. How long it would be before Sunning Rocks were submerged. His best plan was still to push the mat over to Graystripe. Looking back, he saw that his friend had already moved downstream into a good position to catch the mat as he was swept towards him. Here we go, Fireheart muttered. StarClan, help us! He pushed himself off the rock, thrusting at the mat with his muzzle to guide it into the current. The two kits whimpered and flattened themselves against the twigs. Fireheart put every last scrap of energy into pushing the mat ahead of him. With his nose and paws, he could feel exhaustion draining the strength from his limbs. His fur was soaked, and he was so cold he could hardly breathe. Raising his head and blinking water out of his eyes, he realized with horror that he lost sight of Graystripe and the bank. It seemed as if there was nothing in the world but the churning water, the fragile mat of twigs, and two terrified kits. Then he heard Graystripe's voice sounding close by. Fireheart! Fireheart, here! Fireheart thrust again at the mat, trying to propel it towards the voice. It spun away from him, and his head went under. Coughing and choking, he clawed his way back to the surface to see Graystripe pacing on dry land just a few tail lengths away. For a heartbeat, Fireheart felt relief that he was nearly there. Then he focused his blurred eyes on the kits again. Fear pulsed through him. The mat was beginning to break up. Fireheart watched helplessly as the twigs underneath the gray kit gave away. The tiny creature was plunged to the torrent. Chapter 12. No! Graystripe yelled, launching himself after the drowning kit. Fireheart lost sight of them. The kit left on the mat squealed desperately, trying to cling to the twigs as they were split apart by the current. With the last of his strength, Fireheart drove himself forward, sank his teeth into the little creature's scruff, and kicked out for dry ground. Within moments, he felt stones under his paws and managed to stand. Stone-limbed with weariness, he staggered out and dropped the black kit on the grass at the edge of the flood. Its eyes were closed. He was not sure if it was still alive. Glancing downstream, he saw Graystripe splashing out of the shallows with the gray kit gripped firmly in his teeth. He padded up to Fireheart and set it gently on the ground. Fireheart nosed both kits. They were lying very still. But when Fireheart looked closer, he could see the faint rise and fall of their flanks as they breathed. "Fake StarClan!" he muttered. He began to lick the black kit as he had seen the queens in the nursery do to their little ones, rasping his tongue against the lie of the fur to arouse the kit and warm it against the fur. Soon the black kit twitched and coughed up a mouthful of river water. It took longer for the gray kit to respond, but at last it too coughed up water and opened its eyes. "They're alive!" exclaimed Graystripe, his voice filled with relief. "Yes, but they won't live long without their mother," Fireheart pointed out. He sniffed the black kit carefully. Then the river water washed off much of the clan scent, but he could still detect a faint trace. "RiverClan," he meowed, unsurprised. "We'll have to take 'em home." Fireheart's courage almost deserted him for good at the thought of crossing the swollen river. He had almost drowned rescuing the kits. He felt exhausted. His limbs were cold and stiff. His fur was soaked. He wanted nothing more than to creep into his own den and sleep for a moon. Graystripe still crouched over the gray kit, looked as if he felt the same. His thick gray fur was flattened against his body and his amber eyes were wide with anxiety. "Do you think we can get across?" he meowed. "We've got to, or the kids will die." Forcing himself to his paws, Fireheart picked up the black kit again by its scruff and headed downstream. "Let's see if we could cross by the stepping stones like you said." Graystripe padded after him, carrying the gray kit through the wet grass at the edge of the floodwater. When the river was at its usual level, the stepping stones was an easy route across for the RiverClan cats. The longest leap from rock to rock was no more than a tail length. RiverClan controlled the territory here on both sides of the river. Now, floodwater completely covered the stones. But where they had once broken the surface, a dead tree, its bark stripped away, lay across the river. Fireheart guessed that some of its branches had been caught on the submerged stepping stones. "Big StarClan!" He exclaimed. "We could use the tree to cross." He adjusted his grip on the kit and waddled out into the flood, towards the splintered end of the tree trunk. The kit, seeing the churning water barely a mouse length below its nose, began to mew and struggle feebly. "Keep still, both of you!" growled Graystripe gently as he sat down the gray kit for a moment to adjust his grip. "We're going to find your mother." Fireheart wasn't sure if his terrified kit was even old enough to understand, but at least it went limp again, so it was easier to carry. He had to lift his head high to keep the tiny creature clear of the water as he floundered towards the tree. He reached it without needing to swim and sprang upward, clawing for a grip on the soft, rotting wood. Once he had pulled himself up, his main concern was keeping a paw hold on the smooth, slippery trunk. Gingerly placing each of his paws in a straight line, Fireheart padded towards the opposite bank with the river churning beneath him, suckling at the tree as if it wanted to seep it, and his burden of cats away downstream. Fireheart glanced back to see Graystripe following with the gray kit. His face creased with determination. At the far end, the trunk divided into a tangle of broken branches. Fireheart ducked down to squeeze through them, being careful not to let the kid's fur catch on the splinters. It was harder to find a paw hold as the branches tapered, and he ran out of anything that might bear his weight when there was still a gap a couple of fox lengths separating him from the far side of the river. Fireheart took a deep breath, flexed his hind legs, leaped. His front paws hit the bank, while his hind paws kicked madly in the rushing current. As water splashed up, the kit started to struggle again. Fireheart kept his teeth clenched in his neck fur as he sank his front claws into the soft earth and scrabbled upward until he stood safely on the bank. He lurched forward a few paces and set the kit down gently. Glancing around, he saw Graystripe pulling himself out of the water a little way downstream. He lowered the gray kit to the ground and shook himself. "The river water tastes foul," he spat. "Look on the bright side," Fireheart suggested. "At least it should disguise your scent. The River Clan cats won't know that you're the warrior who's been trespassing on their territory if they ever found out." He broke off as 3 cats crashed out of the bushes just beyond Graystripe. Fireheart braced himself as he recognized Leopard Fur, the River Clan deputy, and the warriors Black Claw and Stone Fur. Forcing his tired legs to move, he picked up the black kit and padded along the bank to stand beside Graystripe. The gray warrior hauled himself to his paws, and the 2 cats set down their burdens and faced their enemies together. Fireheart wondered if the River Clan cats had overheard what he was saying to Graystripe. He knew that he and Graystripe were too exhausted to stand up to a patrol of strong, fresh warriors. His head spun as he tried to summon enough energy for a fight into his frozen paws. But to his relief, the River Clan cats halted a few tail lengths away. "What's this?" growled Leopard Fur. Her golden spotted fur bristled, and her ears were flattened against her head. Beside her, Black Claw stood with his lips drawn back in a snarl. "Why are you trespassing in our territory?" he demanded. "We're not trespassing," Fireheart meowed quietly. "We pulled 2 of your kits out of the river and wanted to bring them home." "Do you think we nearly drowned ourselves just for fun?" Graystripe blurted out. Stonefur paced forward until he was close enough to sniff the 2 kits. "It's true!" His blue eyes widened. "They're Mistyfoot's missing kittens!" Fireheart stiffened in amazement. He knew that Mistyfoot had recently had kits. He hadn't realized that the kits they rescued were hers. He was even more thankful now that they had been able to save the kits' lives, but he knew they mustn't let any of these cats know that Mistyfoot had friends in ThunderClan. Leopard Fur did not relax the fur on her shoulders. "How do we know you saved the kits?" she snarled. "You might have been trying to steal them." Fireheart stared at her. After risking their lives in the floodwater, he couldn't believe that they were actually being accused of stealing his kits. "Don't be such a mouse brain," he spat. "No cat from ThunderClan tried to steal your kits. When we could walk across the river on ice, why do you think we tried to do it now? We nearly drowned." Leopard Fur looked thoughtful, but Black Claw stalked up and thrust his head aggressively into Fireheart's face. Fireheart snarled, ready to counter a blow. "Black Claw!" Leopard Fur meowed sharply. "Back off! We'll let these cats explain themselves to Crooked Star and see if he believes them." Fireheart opened his mouth to protest, but left the words unspoken. They would have to go with the River Clan cats. In their exhausted state, he and Graystripe had no hope of winning a fight. At least Graystripe would be able to check on Silverstream. "All right," Fireheart meowed. "I just hope your clan leader can see the truth when it's in front of his nose." Leopard Fur led the way back along the bank, while Black Claw picked up one kit and stalked threateningly alongside Fireheart and Graystripe. Stonefur brought up the rear, carrying the other kit. When they reached the island where the River Clan cats had their camp, Fireheart saw that a wide channel of racing water separated from the ridge of dry ground. Wrenching at the overhanging boughs of the willow trees, no cats were visible through the reeds. Fireheart could see silver water lapping among the bushes that concealed the camp. Leopard Fur paused, her eyes widened with alarm. "The water has risen since we left camp, she meowed. As she spoke, a yowl came from behind them at the top of the slope, where Fireheart and Graystripe had hidden the talk to Silverstream. Leopard fur up here! Fireheart turned, and they saw RiverClan's leader, Crookestar, emerging from the shelter of the bushes. His pale tabby coat was soaked, fur sticking out all directions, and his twisted jaw made him look as if he were mocking the patrol and the prisoners. What happened? Leopardfur demanded as she reached her leader. The camp is flooded, Crookestar replied. His voice was flat with defeat. We've had to move up here. As he spoke, 2 or 3 other cats emerged cautiously from the bushes. Fireheart noticed Graystripe brighten when he saw one of them with Silverstream. What have you brought us? Crookestar went on. He narrowed his eyes at Fireheart and Graystripe. ThunderClan spies? As if we didn't have enough trouble. They found Mistyfoot's kits, Leopardfur told a nodding to Stonefur and Blackclaw to bring forward the kits. They claim they pulled them out of the river. I don't believe a word of it, spat Blackclaw, setting down the kit he carried. You can't trust a ThunderClan cat. At the mention of the kit, Silverstream had turned and disappeared rapidly under the bushes again. Crookestar padded forward and sniffed the pathetic bundles. By now they had begun to recover from the ordeal and were trying to sit up, though they still looked completely waterlogged. Mistyfoot's kits went missing when the camp flooded, Crookestar remarked, turning his cold green gaze on Fireheart and Graystripe. How do you come to have them? Fireheart exchanged an exasperated glance with Graystripe, exhaustion making him short-tempered. We flew across the river, he meowed sarcastically. A loud yowling interrupted him. Mistyfoot broke out of the bushes, came racing over to them. My kits! Where are my kits? She crouched over the tiny scraps of fur, staring wildly around as if she thought the other cats would try and take them from her. Then she began licking them furiously, trying to comfort both of them at once. Stonefur pressed up close against her and meowed comfortingly in her ear. Silverstream followed more slowly and stood beside her father, Crookestar, eyeing the ThunderClan cats. Fireheart was relieved to see her gaze pass with apparent indifference over Graystripe. She would not give them away, he was sure. More cats emerged after her and gathered curiously around. Fireheart recognized Graypool, who gave no sign that she had ever seen him before. Mudfur, the RiverClan medicine cat who crouched beside Mistyfoot to examine the kits. All the RiverClan cats were wet, though, and the fur clinging to their bodies showed they were skinnier than ever. Fireheart had always thought of RiverClan cats as plump and sleek, well-fed on fish from the river. That wasn't until Silverstream told him that Two Legs had stayed by the river during Greenleaf, stolen or scared away most of their prey. The Two Legs had left the forest now during Leaf Bear, but RiverClan had been unable to hunt when the river froze. And instead of bringing much-needed food, the thaw had driven them out of their camp completely. In spite of his pang of pity, Fireheart could also see the unfriendliness in their eyes, the hostility in their flattened ears and twitching tail tips. Fireheart knew he and Graystripe would have to work hard to convince Crookestar that they really saved the kits, not stolen. The clan leader was at least prepared to give them a chance to explain. Tell us what happened, Crookestar ordered. I'm going to leave it there. Because I can. Okay, I'm sorry. My time is actually getting long. We're already hitting the 40-minute mark. And the longer the videos are, the longer it takes for them to upload. It's been busy on my end. My husband and I were trying to find a place to live. We're trying to find a new home. And we're in Northern California. Yeah, it's been difficult. Why do people post, hey, this is for rent on like official websites? And then you go and contact those websites that contact them. Like, oh, now we don't have any listings. Sorry. Why are you posting you do then? Sorry, rant. All right, back to the story. Do you think Cricket Star is going to believe them? I mean, it is the truth. Fireheart and Graystripe really did save those kids. You know, that was a close moment that all of them could have died. More likely Fireheart. But yeah, they all could have died. Do you think they're going to get out of this? If so, do you think they're going to be able to hide it from Blue Star? Fireheart and Graystripe just keep seeming to get in trouble, don't they? Although this time, not necessarily their fault. Do you think the fact that they technically know Mistyfoot, that maybe that might help them? Do they get Cricket Star will figure that out though? Who knows? And also the rogues, the rogue cats in Two Lake Place. Okay, Blue Star knows about it, and I'm sure I explained this already, but you know the difference between rogues and a loner. A loner is generally one or a few cats that are alone. They're not owned by humans, but they're not part of a clan. But they're respectful of boundaries. They have rules. They don't go out and try to cause harm. That's a loner. Rogue are the ones you have to worry about because they're rogues. They are much more likely. They have like no code. Rogues don't have a code, essentially. They're like a loner, but more likely to commit a crime. But yeah, so we have some rogues that might pop up later. Who knows? Either way, I hope you all are having a wonderful day. In all honesty, I wish I could promise like a regular upload schedule. As it is, right now my life isn't in a schedule. It used to be, now it's not again. So it's been a little bit difficult for me to upload. For that, I apologize. We will continue in the next video. I hope you all are having a wonderful day. Please be safe out there in our crazy, mixed up universe. Bye.